Hi, my name is Melvin Way. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which features many plant growing series. This one is about growing cantaloupe from seeds. So it's day 0, and I'll have many more episodes to follow. So originally, cantaloupe referred only to the non-netted orange flesh melons of Europe. Now it means pretty much any orange flesh melon of Cucumis mellow. It's the same species as honeydew, which I grew in 2013. It's the most popular melon in North America. Personally, I like honeydew better. Cantaloupes are fairly cheap around where I am, and I bought 2. Each one was 99 cents, and they each contain hundreds of seeds. So I did 3 rounds of rinsing. I scooped maybe 150, 200 seeds into this cup and picked out the larger pieces of pulp. But other than that, there's still a lot of residual pulp and hence sugar in there, which I typically eschewed in the past. But this is perhaps a more natural approach, and if nothing else, it's quick and dirty, saves a lot of time. So after my mango seed germination failed, I decided to use the pot for this. I'm going to redistribute some of the seeds into the middle and not bury things too deep. That's just maybe 1 centimeter to 2 centimeters of soil on top, potting mix, and obviously I'm not going to pack it down like a bulldozer, which would be very bad, but you don't want it too loose either, so that things start shifting around after they germinate, because that would be bad as well. So just gently pat things down and water and hope for the best. I know this is a huge quantity of cantaloupe seeds to be planting at one time in just one pot, as these vines can get very, very large. And I don't particularly intend to carry this all the way to fruition, no pun intended, because I have a passion fruit vine that's my main series, most popular one of 2017. And as you can see in the background, it's going around the balcony rail like a trellis, and that takes up a lot of space and uses up a lot of resources, so I don't have space outside of this balcony to grow a second vine. So it's day 6, and I hadn't looked at my balcony for 2 days, and when I peeked through the blinds, this hit me like a brick wall, and it took about 3 seconds to process this and realize that wasn't one of my existing plant series. It was all these seedlings that had popped out in a ring, like a fairy ring of mushrooms. So it's a beautiful sight with all this lush foliage appearing from a barren pot in just 6 days. I don't know the exact date at which things started popping out of the soil. It could have been day 4, day 5, or even, who knows. I don't think it was day 3 though. I probably did some work on the balcony prior to that. So here's a 360 view on my Lazy Susan. You can see this area, which is particularly striking because all those seedlings just pushed out plates of dried potting mix. So basically all the water I had showered in and that was existing in the potting mix on day 0 went into these plant cells, combined with a rapid growth that created all this volume to push everything out of the way and create a upheaval in the potting mix. So I imagine there's going to be a lot more shifting around because I have so many seedlings here. This is very interesting. I've never planted this many seeds at one time, and I think it's something I'll probably be doing in the future, unless it's something like mango again, where you only have one giant seed and not many attempts, unless you're willing to eat 100 mangoes and try. But that would be a lot of work. So I'm going to do some showering, watering from the top. In my showering can, it has a 3-liter capacity. Got this off Amazon.com. It's been a great boon to my plant growing because it typically doesn't disturb the soil along with the foliage. As you can see now, there's chunks of potting mix for some of these stuck on the top. Some of them have seed coats still attached. So I'll just water like this, and you'll notice it's a very gentle stream. Nothing gets disturbed. And I'm not going to do any manipulations yet. And I just want to see what happens to this pot over the next few days and weeks. Typically with the other melon vines, or vines in general, such as passion fruit, it seems like one dominates unless they're evenly spaced apart sufficiently. Then, like in my first series of growing regarding honeydew, I had 3 vines, but still there was a dominant one. And I suspect that'll be the case here. I don't know if it's going to be in the middle. I think it might be that lone one in the middle. But in any case, there are so many first movers. I mean, they're all tied at this point. I expect the ones that are closer to us to not do as well because they'll dry out quicker, and the ones that are away from us to also not do as well because they lack in sunlight compared to stuff in the middle. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for another episode soon. Hello and welcome back. It's day 7. I know it's only been one day since the last update, but I decided to fertilize the very next day upon seeing the seedlings grow so quickly. Not that things haven't been fast enough, it's just I think these will hit a brick wall pretty soon if I don't fertilize, because I steam sterilized the potting mix, which is largely sphagnum peat moss, wood chips, branch chunks, and things like that. It's not quite the same as wild dirt that has all these microbes in it, fungi, bacteria that help break down nutrients and organic detritus. So having steam sterilized all this potting mix to avoid fungus gnats and spider mites and springtails and things like that, I think some fertilization would be good. I think the fertilizer burn scares that I've read about online are overblown. If you rinse very quickly like this and don't just let it sit there wet and heavily concentrated sitting on the foliage or having foliage lie against the potting mix on heavily fertilized soil for hours and hours and days, then you're going to be okay. Plus there's too many seedlings in the way, too many leaves. There's nothing I can do, and I got a little overzealous with watering later on. I saw this runoff coming out of the bottom watering tray, so I used these self-watering pots supposedly where you can pour water in the bottom watering tray and have them feed like that. But in the beginning it doesn't make any sense to do that because the root systems are very short and shallow. So if you were to just water from the bottom, not only would it not be enough, but it would probably never get there to the tips of the roots where it needs to be. So you can see these two have kind of fallen over a little bit. That's kind of expected because I'm adding a lot of water weight to the cotyledons, so they're all top heavy after I water. So I expect things to right themselves. There's going to be a certain amount of shifting going on because there's just so many of these, and as they all grow and expand and new ones sprout, that's going to shift the dynamics of the soil, the potting mix, the physics of everything. And you know, there's going to be winners and losers, of course, but you know, at this stage everyone's a winner. And I'm just going to remove these 4 or 5 seed coats for aesthetic reasons. I know it kind of looks like I ripped a chunk off there, but it's not actually the case. It's just camera angles. You know, there's a little sort of 2D dimple at the end of each leaf in the middle where the vein ends. So that was actually very pain-free. It's day 8. I shifted the pot. I applied wood stain to this table, which I've had for a year. It was an unstained table, and it needs some time to dry in the sun. The pot is overflowing with beautiful green cotyledons, and they're much bigger than they were yesterday, despite me having this pot only on the tabletop for half of its daily allotted sunlight. So it gets sort of western, southern, angled afternoon sun. It's midsummer, and you know, it didn't even get the total sun it could have gotten yesterday, probably only half, and yet things are way bigger. And the ones that seemed like they were falling over a little, they righted themselves. So it's just very interesting. I know these leaves at the bottom and on the sides right now, they look sort of yellowish. That's just a reflection off of the pot. Hello and welcome back. It's day 9 of my Growing Cantaloupe from Seed series. The cotyledons are getting bigger. The first true leaves are appearing, as I'll show you later on. Potting mix upheaval caused by wet congealed plates of potting mix shifting around due to all the rising and expanding of all this plant matter has left some seedlings out. That one I just showed you has a root sticking out of the other side. It's going to dry up. It's already facing stunted growth and is very unlikely to recover. So that was our first casualty. as expected. I haven't counted all of these seedlings. There might be well over 100, maybe even 150. Who knows? Maybe it was 200, maybe not that much. But as you can see here, you can sort of make out the beginnings of the first true leaves coming out. At first it looks like there's just one, although I'm sure it'll be followed by another quickly. And it's day 11. I've applied several coats of wood stain to my table, and it looks a lot better now. So there's the optical illusion that there are far fewer seedlings now because the cotyledons are so big. I spun the pot around so everything wouldn't just grow in one direction and favor the seedlings that were facing one side. So you can see noticeable first true leaves. You can see those folded leaves coming out, and they're coming along a little slower than I expected due to the rapid continued cotyledon growth. There's the optical illusion going on. It looks like there are only 50 seedlings instead of 150. So this would be the original orientation of the pot, with everything favoring one side. It makes sense facing west basically, because that's where the sun is in the afternoon. This place doesn't get any morning sun. So I'm watering a little bit, not too much, because as I said earlier, there's a lot of water in the watering tray, which signifies that the potting mix has been soaked from top to bottom previously. And just a little bit will do. I want to keep the top wet because that's where the roots are, and they're not very deep yet. So if I don't do this every few days, then a lot of seedlings will just die. And then we're going to zoom in afterwards and show you places where it appears that pinching off has occurred. Now there's a term where you use your fingernails or whatever to pinch off the top and prune. That's not what I'm talking about. So I think it's caused by roots losing contact with potting mix and drying out due to the simultaneous growth of so many seedlings at once and all that increase in volume, stems and roots and whatnot. You have an upheaval of plates of congealed potting mix, and that exposes lots of roots in these two main areas that I'm pointing out, and all the seedlings will die, whereas that's a boon for all the other seedlings that are healthy and have their roots firmly entrenched in the ground. Check out my Facebook page. Thanks for watching this update. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's day 14 of this Growing Cantaloupe from Seed series. As you can see, most of these vine seedlings are working on their first and second true leaves. The first true leaves are quite big for some and very small for others. That's because of positioning and due to the way I rotate this pot every few days. Some are just not in a position that's good enough to receive enough sunlight, or they're not receiving an equal amount of nutrients or hydration. So those seedlings that you see dead on the ground, those are the ones that were dead in previous episodes. And that looks like a strand of dental floss. That's just called pinching off, where there's some kind of fungal infection and the stem just pinches off like that and becomes impossibly thin, showing you how much of that mass is just due to hydration, turgor pressure, and the water content inside basically. So the pot is filling out nicely. Everything's in emerald green. It's kind of overshadowing the, I don't know what color you would call this pot, sort of a reddish orange or brick or whatever. So I'm just doing a little bit of watering every 2 days, say, to keep things hydrated at the top. I know these seedlings are still in a precarious situation. So it's day 16 right now. I spun the pot. And I'm going to do more fertilization with vitamins, Men's Health multivitamins that contain all the micronutrients the plants would need. Some old Tums, I'll crush up 2 of those, 2 multivitamins. Tums will provide, 2 of them would provide 1.5 grams of calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is a usable form of calcium that you would also find in bones, bone meal, etc. So I haven't noticed any further deaths. Everything's getting bigger. It's really hard to visually estimate how many seedlings there are at this point, but if I thought there was 100 to 150 in the beginning, then there still are basically minus maybe 15 or so that died. So here's the tums. I'm going to crush that up. I'm using a pair of vice grip pliers that I have no other application for currently, not really doing any home improvement projects or anything that requires that tool, but it's a nice nickel plated chrome or whatever they make them out of these days tool that won't rust, and use it to crush stuff. So I'm having fun with that, vitamins, and then I'll apply the Miracle Grow, and that'll be enough fertilization for the remainder of what I expect to be a short series. Remember, this is just a filler series since the passion fruit vine that's very dominant in the background. That's using the balcony railing as a trellis. So there's really no space on my very small balcony for a second large vine to grow to the point at which it could bear fruit. As I was saying, this is a filler series to transition away from my 3 herbal series that started in late winter, early spring of 2017, to things that will garner more viewership. So that's basically my plan in a nutshell. Thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for further updates until the series reaches a conclusion. Also, if anyone knows if these leaves are edible, please let me know in the comment section. Welcome back for another episode of Growing Cantaloupes from Seeds. It's day 21. As you can see, there are some seedlings that are suffering underneath. Some of them toppled over in the very first few days, and their roots were exposed to air, so they dried out and died. Couldn't grow as fast as everyone else. So the true leaves are much bigger than they were in previous episodes. Everything looks very healthy, especially on the perimeter, although that may be an optical illusion in the sense that the ones in the center that haven't grown long enough, of course, won't fall to the side. These are vines, and they can't grow upwards for more than a few inches without all this bending, phototropism, and falling over. So maybe it's the case that the ones in the center are simply funneled there because they're smaller and haven't grown as long to fall to the side. So here's the other orientation of the pot, which is more photogenic. It's the opposite orientation of the one I had the pot in and I just filmed for the last few seconds. And I'm going to keep it in this orientation after I'm done watering later. And there's going to be some phototropism, of course, over the next few days. But phototropism kicks in mostly for new growth. After these things have reached a certain age, the base of their stems will stop responding to further rotation and everything will settle down. So maybe this configuration is pretty much what you're going to see in the future. It's going to be more dense. It's possible that everything is already limited despite the growth from the high population density of over 100, maybe even over 150 individuals. So I'm just going to water on the top for maybe 30 seconds to soak the first centimeter or 2 of potting mix. It has the fertilization it needs to do well as a whole, but I think the individuals are already a little bit limited. If you've watched this far into the series, you're probably already a subscriber. Please remember to go to my Facebook page and give that a like too. It's day 22, the finale of my Growing Cantaloupe from Seed series. That's why I'm uprooting these and I'm counting. I'm not going to beat around the bush. There are 122 seedlings in total, an astonishing number for such a small pot, but slightly below my estimate of 150 seedlings or more. So there are probably some that haven't germinated, but I'm not going to count those. So I'm sorry if the title of this series misled people into thinking that I was going to go all the way like I am with my passion fruit vine in the background and trying to get fruit. These Cucumis mellow species are now popular. That's the scientific name of this vine. It's actually the same as with honeydew in 2013 and with my Charente melon vine in 2014. So these are not actually species that people want to watch. I mean, they're more popular than, say, the 3 of 2017, California Goldenrod, Sweet Annie, Yerba Mansa. Those are too parochial. They don't get much search traffic and interest. People are more interested in fruit trees for example, or grape cuttings. So things like that, maybe ginger and other herbs, fruits that you can buy in grocery stores around the world and grow on your own. So in my transition from 3 parochial herbs that nobody knows of to more fruit tree series, I just decided to start this series as a filler. So as you know, I poured in a glass with 100 something seeds, and they germinated very quickly. It was just something to keep people interested in the channel while I made this transition. So I'm pulling these out. I'm going to use the same soil, no need for sterilization in such a short period of time, to start another series. I hope I can provide you with some new content within a week from the release of this video. So I'm going to use these as compost. I'm going to cut them up, basically microgreens for the other pots, most notably the passion fruit vine in the far corner that you see in the far right. I'm not sure how effective this top layer of compost will be for the other plants. I'm sure it's not as effective as the Miracle-Gro or any other kind of chemical fertilizer in providing the macronutrients and micronutrients that plants need, but it seems like it would be a huge waste to let all of these microgreens just go into the trash and go into a landfill anyway, so why not just use it for some composting action. So aside from that, I just wanted to use this episode as an opportunity to explain what's going on with my channel and what to expect in the future. So I should have a few new series coming up soon, and I'm looking to wrap up some of the more unpopular ones. There's still the California goldenrod, which is flowering, and the yerba mansa, which doesn't grow nearly fast enough to provide the leaves and fresh greens that I thought it could for me. For personal consumption, nobody's watching that either, so I'm looking to wrap those up at some point, probably over the next few weeks, and get some other series started with my pots. Thanks for watching my series on growing cantaloupe from seeds. I'll be making a compilation video for people who are watching in the future. Stay tuned to my channel.